Today on Locked On Rockies, the impact of the series loss in San Francisco, especially with potential long-term loss of Kyle Freeland, still up in the air, we don't know yet, and recapping the draft from, what was it, about 2 days into it now. All that and more on today's show.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 10th day of July in the year 2023. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You're in the right spot because that's what we do around here each and every day. Thanks to you for making us your first listen of the day. Thanks for tuning in and checking us out on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel and being part of the show. We're super close to 500 subscribers. If you want to help the show grow, all you got to do is just hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to help the show grow. Today on the show, we're going to talk about the series loss to San Francisco. We're going to talk about the draft, and we're going to talk about Kyle Freeland. And I thought it was a really good, it kind of ties into some comments and thoughts I have about some news that you might have saw about the New York Times today. Before we dive in today, this episode's brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money deposit. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. The Rockies lose the series to the San Francisco Giants. And unfortunately, what was the biggest bummer out of all of this, of course, is the Rockies' inability to back up Kyle Freeland in yet another performance. And then on top of it, he goes down injured. The Colorado Rockies simply can't really have this happen. I mean, this is something that they simply, if out of anything, out of all of the possibilities, out of everything that's happened to the starting rotation, the one thing that still felt normal, still had the sense and the idea of confidence in, was Kyle Freeland, at least understanding and knowing his role. Sorry about that. Just dropped my phone. But anyway, and of course it came out where a game where the Rockies are getting shut out and not backing him up, and he's pitching really well in a ball game. As Freeland says, it's was one of the worst feelings he's had pitching injury wise. Freeland said it's the first time he's ever dislocated a joint in his life. So it's the first time he felt that. I'm reading from Henry Schulman here on MLB.com. The x-rays showed no broken bones. When he returns to Denver, he will undergo an MRI to look for structural damage that cannot be seen on an x-ray. Regardless of the results, that type of injury clearly means Freeland will lose time at the start of the second half, leaving 4/5 of the projected opening day rotation on the injured list. Austin Gomber, who will pitch the second half opener against the Yankees on Friday, is the last of the quintet starting. Opening day starter German Marquez underwent Tommy John surgery in May. Antonio Senzatella went on the injured list in the same month with a sprained ulnar collateral ligament. Reminder, that was on the same day he came back. Rockies lost Ryan Feltner to a skull fracture when he was hit by a Nick Castellanos line drive on May 13th. Notwithstanding what Freeland's injury means for the team's chances of a better showing in the second half, his loss hits hard because of who he is. The Rockies player with the third longest tenure on the team, a mainstay since his 2017 arrival, and a pitcher and a person deemed worthy of the 5-year, $64.5 million contract the club gave him at the start of the 2022 season. It's awful. I mean, it's just another kick when you're down. There's no real answer. I don't know what the Rockies immediately turn to. They're going to have to they're going to have to get aggressive in terms of a move. They're going to have to figure something out, or they're just going to have to turn to some young guys and hope that it is. Is it Peter Lambert? How close is he to being ready? How many bullpen days can you really go through? And I tweeted about this, and I thought this was an interesting conversation, because I got some people that were feeding back, were saying, regardless of Freeland's health, the Rockies should be incentivized to sell, and I absolutely agree. But what I was saying yesterday was, now you don't really have, there's nothing to hold on to in terms of this season. I mean, yes, it was a wash and a loss anyway. The Rockies are officially off to the second worst start in history. I believe it was I can't remember. I believe it's Patrick Saunders that was tweeting about it. Let me see if I'm going to pull up here and see if I can get that for you. But the Rockies are on to a off to the second worst start in team history. And it's only going to get worse as the teams, unfortunately, are going to be without, again, 4/5 of their starting rotation. Honestly, I mean, that's just miserable. It's the Rockies. It just, you can't afford to do. You couldn't really afford to lose Kyle. So now, I guess it's funny saying that, right, in a lost season like this. My point was more so that you got to get an arm back now. You got to get people that are close to MLB ready. You got to, I think all the plans should just be accelerated. But time and time again, to remember what I was brought up, and I believe who's chatting with me. Let's get, so I believe it's half of Blake Street banter there. Let's see, Arm from Radio OFAM on Twitter. He responds with this after I sent the tweet of, if Freeland misses significant time, the Rockies must be sellers as much as possible. The 100-loss season is here. It's time to fully embrace giving guys in the system major league ABs. He says, them being sellers is different from them not selling. Sounds weird, but it's different. They value their guys too high, which is why they don't make trades. Bard and Crone, for example, they've already shown they're sellers with the move of Moose and the other DFA. And to think the front office, as incompetent as they seem, actually believe they're competing this year is ridiculous. They extend guys they like and don't move them, but they have pieces that can be moved and should be moved. But it's, what does the front office value the guys at? Freeland out doesn't change any of this. All in all, yes, like I said, I agree with basically everything here. But I think now with Kyle Freeland, if he's out for a significant amount of time, I mean, again, we're still waiting for MRI confirmation of the actual significance of the injury. I just think now you really don't have much. There's just, it's really not that much of a game-changing move, yes. But it's just kind of I think it's the last straw, because at this point it should just be full on embrace this year as being lost and see what you can do maybe sooner rather than later. If you can get a deal done and replenish your pitching staff, if you can make the right moves, but that we can talk and say and want and wish and hope for the Rockies to do these things. But as I talked about there on, as people point out on Twitter, and as I talked about there with here at Blake Street banter there, Arm here from I can't remember, it's how valuable are Rockies players truly in the market? And I just, there's really no one out there that's gonna get a lot of price. But if you can do enough to do stuff like Mike Moustakas for high A picks or for high A things, that's all right. But it's not going to necessarily help you this year, and it's not going to necessarily help you closer on. It's definitely not going to help you if you do nothing. The Rockies are going to have to start willing to make some moves. And I think the point of the Freeland thing was, now there's no doubt about it. There's no, I mean, at least for me, there's nothing I feel like the Rockies could use as an excuse anymore to not fully punt on this season. But then what do I see before recording? They demote Eleris Montero. This season needs to be about building for the future. And can the Rockies really expect to do that with the players they have and the value they have? That's the bigger question. But I want to make a point of why I think of why it's important that these conversations matter and the coverage of the team matters in the wake of the New York Times announcement today. But to just kind of put a close and a bow on it, Rockies lose the series to the Giants yet again. The Rockies actually do play a pretty solid ball game there in game number 2 of the set, winning 5-2. Great pitching performance there from Austin Gomber. In that one, the Rockies offense was better. Ezekiel Tovar continues to have big moments and comes up big. But again, the streakiness of the offense on full display as the team is shut out and unable to back up Kyle, who had a great pitching performance. But Logan Webb gets the complete game shutout with 10 strikeouts there. The Giants yet again win a series against the Rockies. Always tough to see. But I want to comment more a little bit on the coverage and why it's important that why I think it's really important to continue to really support the people that are following and covering this team. Not just myself, because as I like to emphasize, there are people that are doing above and beyond to cover this team. And it's important that their work and their things are highlighted, because it really matters, and it matters a lot to you Rockies fans. Let's talk about that coming up here in segment number 2. But first, I want to tell you about BetterHelp. If you want to take care of yourself, if you are looking for a little bit, maybe some direction, maybe you need just some help working through things, maybe you just need to figure out how to navigate this stage of life. Well, therapy is a great option, and BetterHelp is a great resource if you're thinking about starting therapy. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB to get 10% off your first month. That's right. Get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We're also on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. All you got to do is search Rockies or Locked On Rockies. You'll be taken to where you need to go. If you search Rockies, you're going to get that play-by-play action when games resume after the All-Star break, which, yes, that's right. Things are on the All-Star break right now, so we're doing a little pre-record some stuff here for the pods and discussing on things of that nature. So get back into the live shows here later in the week. But shout-outs to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. And thank you for tuning in and hanging out with us here on the Locked On Rockies podcast, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here. That is why I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire. And I wanted to talk about this because it's a little bit bigger picture stuff and maybe not so focused on the Rockies, but why I loved that conversation and why I was feeling why it was really great to interact with the Blake Street Banner guys and discuss them. When you see an organization like the New York Times announce what it did and remove its dedicated sports desk and moving it to the Athletic, in the wake of the Athletic already downsizing considerably, sends a warning sign for coverage and stuff and focus on teams like the Colorado Rockies. If it's not for people like DNVR, Purple Row, Blake Street Banter continuing to put up and continuing to go above and beyond to do this stuff, we wouldn't get as much Rockies coverage as we do. The Denver Post and MLB, of course, great. The mainstays, there's the big things, but it's really important that Rockies fans support and embrace your Rockies media and Rockies outlet and Rockies folks. If you want this team covered the way it should be, it deserves to be, and gets the criticism that it is, and gets the focus and the look at it and the approach, you should already be upset at what happened at the Athletic, and you should be cautious and mindful of what's happening with the New York Times as things get more downsize and downsize, you'll see this a lot. It's the talent doesn't matter. There's incredibly talented people out there, way more talented than me, that follow this team every day, that travel with this team, that are in the clubhouse, that are in the press box, that do the work to bring you Rockies baseball and Rockies baseball coverage, the coverage that we need and deserve as Rockies fans, because we got to follow this team. It takes an incredible amount of effort, but it doesn't always feel like it's reciprocated, at least on the major scheme levels and when it comes to the business side of things. I am incredibly grateful, and I feel incredibly lucky that I have this opportunity to talk about this team and everything. And of course, but I am also mindful of where I'm at, my role as a podcast host, and the other media. I will always try to support and build up and retweet and show off and read and highlight the other people that truly are diving in and following this team with an even more with a finer tooth comb than I am. Though this show relies on the great coverage of others, because it's how we can get topic ideas. I know I can be better. I want to bring more guests on and talk Rockies baseball with us and dive into it. But when we talk about the conversation of, it sounds cheesy, and I know it's on everything, but in this world of content creation, especially stuff like online content creation for things like the Rockies and yeah, especially for topics and teams and organizations like the Rockies, it's incredibly important that you use your efforts, that you use whatever you can. Even like we say, as here on the show, it's as simple as clicking subscribe, because that's how you're going to get the coverage. The stories of the Colorado Rockies need to be told, and it relies on the people that are following and covering and diving into and reporting on this team every single day. As much as it also depends on the front, there's a whole other side. But to hear the stories, to get to know the players, to get the voices from within the clubhouse, and to hear more about Colorado Rockies, actual legit conversations and coverage of this team, not from somebody that just thinks it's Coors Field and this and that and hasn't really covered the team. If you want to continue to be able to have the great people that are covering this team continue to do so, the best way is to always support their work. Always support to support the people following the team, and it's have productive in conversations and engage with them, just like I did, where I'm learning all the time. I have so many opportunities to keep growing and learning and building my knowledge as a Rockies fan and as a baseball fan, that it's so important for me to have access to those resources and to have people and to have those conversations on Twitter and to have people talk to us about, fire off their takes. Why, big part of why we do the show, with how interactive we are with the show. It's really important that support is felt. You know what I mean? Because how many times have you turned on, even, it ain't a lot nowadays, but when the Rockies do get national attention, it's similar old storylines driven into the ground. It's really important to continue to support and believe in the people that are bringing you your coverage of your Rockies, because that's how you really learn more about this team. That's how you can get closer to this team as a fan. And that's how you can know that there are people watching, and that there are people talking to the players and getting the inside look and bringing you as close to the Rockies as they can. Because as we've seen with these big companies and these big organizations, the talent doesn't always matter. It can shrink and shrink and shrink. And you're certainly not going to be able to getting your Rockies, very much Rockies coverage from The Athletic anymore. And if that type of trend, as things in media continue to be very weird, I just wanted to say your support of your favorite creators matters. And it stretches way deeper than baseball. That's just kind of all. It was just something that I saw today. I know it wasn't necessarily too focused on that, but just being talked about and having that engagement on Twitter yesterday just reminds me how important it is that there are people out there willing to spend their time and effort and energy into not only covering the Rockies, but diving in depth into the Rockies, looking at numbers, looking at trends, asking questions at press conferences, doing interviews with players. That stuff matters, and it matters a ton to help the identity and help a franchise and help keep an interest in that franchise. So let's talk a little bit about the draft. We got a little update here of a video of a couple of minutes on why the Rockies went with their number 1 overall pick. And I want to talk, we'll do more draft coverage, I think, tomorrow as well, dive into some other reaction. But I want to look at this video, listen to this video, and see why just kind of highlight. Maybe we'll just talk about the draft and we'll save the video for tomorrow. I can't remember. We'll see. Draft talk, either the video or just a conversation coming up here, because in case you missed it, the pod Locked On MLB Prospects and Locked On Guardians host Jeff who's also been on the show, did some wonderful coverage of that. Let's talk draft coming up here in segment number 3. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about our friends at Sleeper. Sleeper is the new best thing when it comes to using your fantasy baseball mind and getting in on the daily fantasy sports action, because what it does is it allows you to group up picks and make it so you can test your confidence in your baseball knowledge. Like, do you think Shohei is going to strike out more than these people? Do you think CJ Cron's going to hit a home run in this game? Maybe you think that you want to bet on a stolen base from Nolan Jones or something, and add it all up together here and see if you can get 100 times your money on daily fantasy baseball. Well, if you want to check it out there at Sleeper, you can check out their offer of up to 100 times payout for up to an 8-pick contest. You can choose as many as 8 players that you like and pick more or less on your favorite baseball stats like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right and you can win big. It's the promo code Locked On and Sleeper are going to match your first deposit up to $100, and those stats. So if you see, I think it's really cool if you kind of know, if you're feeling it, especially like we said, following that Rockies coverage. If you know and confident the Rockies can pull something off, well, Sleeper is going to be a nice little fun challenge for you, especially as and it helps you stay a little bit more focused as maybe you're following your favorite fantasy baseball players there. Why not check it out? All the cool stuff going on out at Sleeper. You can also get dynamic payouts that are on more stat categories to place the contests on. There's all sorts of great stuff that you can check out at Sleeper, and they got the highest payouts on the daily fantasy market. So use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 match in your first deposit at Sleeper. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you all your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So it's some interesting reaction here. And you know what? I think we're going to save the video clip for tomorrow, because I want to dive into this and explain a little bit more on the big worry that I have about the Rockies when it comes to this, to the approach, because the Rockies have gone after some big names when it comes to some pitchers. They're going college. They're going with some arms that they feel pretty confident in. They really do want to see about what's going on with to really beef up this lack of pitching depth. But the big question is, how much can they really develop him? And there's some question marks about some of the picks in terms of the Rockies' ability to develop. Do we really some of these, a couple of the quick things that I'm seeing is this guy, his slider needs a little bit more work. His swing needs a little bit more work. That's a tough spot to really sit there and feel confident in the Rockies going after a guy. But high strikeout rates when you're looking at the second pick there from Sean Sullivan. But with the Rockies here going out and getting their big name, their first pick, number 9 overall, Chase Dollander here, and from Blake Street Banter here. 4.75 ERA in 89 innings with 30 walks to 100 strikeouts, an OPS against of 748. Fastball's got a good velocity, it looks like, with a 30% whiff rate there. The slider is the big question about Chase, and this is the big question they're gonna see. It's can they bring these pitchers? Can the Rockies really untap potential or help out when players aren't regressing? I mean, there's a big main concern when I come to this team, when it comes to pitching development, and someone that you can go out there and feel confident in the Rockies getting back into form. But what I really like about the pick there of Chase is that I like that there's a 4-pitch mix there. I like that he has that velocity, but as Blake Street Banter adds here in their breakdown of him, the slider has velocity, but had some inconsistent break and got smacked around this year. That's what needs to be tweaked if he's going to return to his dominance. So the big question here too is Chase's regression this year. So the question, can the Rockies do this? Maybe. I don't know. I don't sit here and have a ton of faith in rebuilding, especially with the fact that Rockies pitchers themselves are regressing right now. But I like a lot of velocity. I like a 4-pitch mix, especially when you can get the velocity. I like the fact that the Rockies believe in enough of him to bring him back and get him, and to get him back to his level. We'll see, though, as the Rockies have it's pitching is so weird. It's very strange. It's a very strange, it's especially at Coors. So it's a matter of maybe it's in a different type of approach, but not able to locate your slider does not pan well for Coors Field. But we'll see how it pans out, and we'll see how the Rockies handle business there. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. More draft coverage. We're going to dive more into it. We're going to get more of a look and dive deeper into these questions because I kind of got a little sidetracked there. I don't think we got as much time with the draft as I wanted to today. So we'll dive into some more of the other draft picks there. We'll dive into a little bit more of what the Rockies did there. We'll get some instant reaction from the Locked On network as well. And we'll keep rocking and rolling and talk a little all-star game because I think, again, I want to highlight the fact that the baseball has the best. I still think the best all-star game, and I still think it's one that has a little bit more flair and a little bit more seriousness to it, on top of the home run derby being the best all-star event in all of sports. But thank you so much for making this your first listen of the day. Why don't you go check out Locked On Buffs, Locked On Avs, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Broncos for your second listen of the day. If you need more Colorado sports coverage, you can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can also find us on YouTube at Locked On Rockies on YouTube. Folks, don't miss out on all the fun by just subscribing. It is a big time help. And until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.